Hi students, in this session we will discuss about some more details regarding XML documents and two different types of XML documents that is specifically based on the way in which we are processing the XML document. So in this video lecture I will be focusing on one of the type of XML that follows the categories we will be discussing both, and from the second category we will be focusing on the first one in this session, and the second will be discussed in the next video lecture. So as you can see, there are two types of XML that is called as the well-formed XML document and a valid XML document. So in the previous session we were discussing about the categories or types of XML based on the characteristics of the written XML document, but here we will be focusing on the types of XML based on the way in which that XML document is written. So they are well-formed XML and valid XML documents. These two are very important, but well-formed is very basic thing only, but valid XML is having a special purpose, and this valid XML document can be created by using two methods, especially that is given here, like one is by using the Dtd and second one is by using a method that is called as XML schema. So we will be describing so well-formed XML and valid XML document. So we will see in detail. So first of all, what is this well-formed XML document? We will see what is this well-formed XML document. So a well-formed XML document must start with an XML declaration. That is the first point to be considered. It must start with an XML declaration. We have seen that XML declaration in our first example, which was given in the previous video. That will consist of the version of XML and some other relevant attributes like standalone and other. Some more informations can also be added with that XML declaration. Similarly, it must follow the syntactic guidelines of the tree model. Second thing is, first statement must be an XML declaration, and second thing is it must follow all the syntactic guidelines. The syntax must be followed strictly for writing a well-formed XML document. This means that there should be a single root element. So syntax guideline means it should have a only single root element, and also every element must include a matching pair of start tag and end tag within the start and end tags of the parent element. So there will be a root, under which we will be having different elements, and each element must be having a start tag and an end tag. Similarly, for other elements also we should follow the same basic syntactic guidelines. So a well-formed XML document must start with an XML declaration, and it must follow some syntactic guidelines. Now a well-formed XML document is syntactically correct. So this was the main condition which was given for the well-formed XML document. That means it should follow a proper syntax. So every time we can say that the well-formed XML document is always syntactically correct. That is, it allows to be processed by generic processes. So it will be processed by some internal processes that are part of the browser that traverse the document. So it will be traversing through all the elements of that XML document and create an internal tree representation of that particular XML document. So we are writing all these XML tags by following the initial declaration, then a start tag, a root tag, then there will be some element, then for each element we will be having start tag, end tag, start tag, end tag, and finally the root tag will be ended. So internally this representation will be converted into a tree representation and internally this tree will be processed by using any of the following two methods. One is by using a document object model, or not commonly called as DOM, or by following a different processing methodology that is called as SATS. SATS. So what is this DOM? DOM is a part of processor that allows programs to manipulate the resulting tree representation corresponding to a well-formed XML document. It will process the tree, manipulate the resulting tree that was generated from an XML document. So based on the tree hierarchy, the DOM will be processing the converted tree. The old document must be parsed beforehand when using DOM. So when it is given to the DOM, internal DOM object, that is document object model, it must be parsed. Every type of syntax error must be processed or verified before it is being handed over to the document object model, which will be doing the final processing of the internal tree representation of the XML document that is already written. Similarly, SATS allows processing of XML documents on the fly by notifying the processing program whenever a start or end tag is encountered. So what is happening with SATS is it will directly go for the execution if a start tag and end tag is being encountered. So it will directly go for representation, that is, it is directly go for the processing of that particular start and end tag. But in the case of DOM, what is happening is the entire tree structure will be formed, and before giving for execution final processing, it must be syntactically verified and that must be correct, and the DOM will be following the proper order of maintaining that XML in the proper root sub element, leaf node and other node, how it is being related. All these things will be managed by the document object model. SATS, what is happening is it will directly go for processing the opening and closing tag if it is being encountered within the XML document. So there are different types of processing that is possible with XML document. So most of the web browsers that follows document object model, that will convert into the tree model, and this tree will be processed that is for the final representation of that particular XML document. So there is a parsing always happens before it is handed over to the document object model. Now the second category. So what is a well-formed XML is simply an XML document that follows the syntax of how an XML can be written. It must strictly follow the syntax and it must begin with an XML declaration, and it must be given for a DOM or SATS for the final execution. That's all. When then an XML with a well-formed format will be created. Now we will see what is a valid XML. Valid XML means that is a stronger criteria for, that is, valid XML is a strong criteria for an XML document to be valid. So when an XML document will be valid, so we cannot always say that an XML document is valid. So compared to the previous well-formed XML document, some stronger criteria is being added so that that XML document can be called as a valid XML document. So what are the conditions that are to be followed for making an XML document valid? That means, first of all, the document must be well formed. That is, the first case must be always satisfied. It must be starting with XML declaration, and it must follow all the syntactic formats guidelines of the XML document. And in addition, the element names used in the start and end tag pairs must follow the structure that is specified by a separate document like XML Dtd or XML schema. So when we can call an XML as a valid XML, first point is it must follow the well formed XML format. It must be well formed. And second thing is it must follow some conditions that is already given, that is already written and stored as a separate document called as an XML Dtd. So XML Dtd is one of the method used for forming a valid XML document. And second one is an XML schema, which is again a document, a separate document that is used for making an XML document into a valid XML document. So generally this XML Dtd and XML schema usually consist of some conditions, some additional specifications that is to be followed other than the conditions given in well-formed XML document concept. So it must be well formed, it must follow that declaration and all the start and tag, all those basic things must be followed with valid XML also. And also it must follow the conditions given in a separate document called as XML Dtd or XML schema. So we can use any of these, any one of these, either XML Dtd or XML schema. That depends on the situation. That must follow any of these two documents for the validation of that XML document. So XML Dtd is usually called as document type definition. Document type definition, which is a separate document which specifies some conditions, and this condition must be applied to the XML document where we want to process that XML document. So what is the difference between well-formed XML and valid XML? Well-formed XML, only two conditions. First condition is it is having an XML declaration. It must have an XML declaration. Second point is it must follow all the syntactic rules. It must follow the basic syntax of writing an XML document like start tag, end tag, proper pairing, root tag, and the proper ending of root tag, etc. Then what is valid XML document? Valid XML document, the first point is it must be well formed. First thing is it must follow the first category, that is it must be always a well formed XML document. That means it should have the proper syntactic guidelines that is to be followed. But the second point is the document, the XML document must strictly follow the conditions given in an additional XML or similar document. Some condition statements are written in a separate document called XML Dtd or an XML schema. So we are having two types of creation of valid XML document, either by providing the conditions in an XML Dtd, which is having a format, and we are having a second method, that is by using an XML schema. We can follow the condition of that XML schema, which is having another format through which we can write that XML schema. So it is having its own, both this XML Dtd and XML schema is having their own advantages and disadvantages, and we will be describing in detail about these two. But in this particular video we will be focusing on XML Dtd only, that is the document type definition. Now this is an example of XML Dtd. So usually XML Dtd is written in a separate file, and that is to be associated with an XML document that we are going to use for making it as a valid XML document. So we can see this example. We will see the different contents of this, and then we will describe what are the meanings of all these statements or all these specialized values or specialized keywords used with this XML Dtd. So first of all, it is written in a separate file, and this Dtd must be brought into the XML document where we want to add these features, so that XML document can be converted into a valid XML document. So all the Dtd will start with left angle bracket exclamation doc type, doctype. So if any document is starting with this statement, we can call it as a Dtd document. Then we should provide the root element of the XML document, that is projects. In our previous example, it was projects. Then we should open a square bracket. Then within these square brackets, we are specifying different elements. We are giving some conditions for different elements. So a Dtd must start with left angle bracket exclamation doc type, then root element, square bracket open, then last square bracket closed. In between, we need to specify different elements and its properties, that is the conditions to be followed. And finally, it must end with the right angle bracket. Then this entire document to be saved as filename.dtd, and this Dtd can be brought into the XML document where we are actually going to make that document as a valid XML document. So now let us see what are the different properties that are added in between this doc type projects, opening square bracket and closing square bracket. So first of all, we can see, so each element properties must be represented by using left angle bracket exclamation element. See, these Dtd properties are given with capital letters. So left angle exclamation element. So following element we are going to describe with some properties. So element, then I am providing projects. So I am providing some properties for projects. Projects is the root element. So element projects. Then I am providing the properties. Within bracket I am providing project plus. Then right angle bracket. So for this projects root element, I am providing a condition project plus. So this plus is having a meaning. We will see that later. Projects element is having a property of project plus. Now what is the meaning of this plus? We will see soon. There are some symbols that we are using with XML Dtd which is having some special meaning. So the property of projects is project plus. Okay, so the element projects property is already given. Then again left angle bracket exclamation element. Now I am going to describe about project, which is another element. Within bracket I am going to specify the different attributes: name, comma, number, comma, location, comma, department number, comma, work case. So under project, what are the properties of project? It consists of name, number, location, department number and workers. Along with department number, you can see a question mark, which is a special symbol like plus, which is having a special meaning. We will see soon. Okay, then we will see the description of next element, left angle exclamation element. Then I am going to describe the features of all of these elements. First of all, name. Within bracket I am providing hash PC data, the feature property of name. Property of name. So PC data means which is the element name, which provides the data type of that particular attribute, that is name. So name type is PC data, that is parsed character data which is equivalent to string. So name is of which type of value? Of PC data, that is it is a string value. So this is the representation of string data type in XML Dtd, that is hash PC data in capital letters. Then next one, what is the next element here? Number. So element number, which is also PC data. So here we are going to represent a number in string format. Then next one, next element, that is location, which is also PC data. Then next one, element department number, which is also PC data. Then element workers, which is having a property like worker. Then I am giving a symbol star, which is similar to the previous one. Projects consist of project plus, workers consist of worker star. Here we are having another symbol. So plus is having a meaning, star is having a meaning. We will see soon. Okay, question mark is having a different meaning. So these are some symbols associated with the attribute specification of XML Dtd. The next element, worker, SSN, last name, a question mark symbol, first name, a question mark symbol, then hours. Then again further, element SSN, this SSN, PC data, string type. Then another element, last name, again PC data, first name, again PC data, then hours, again PC data. So these are the conditions that are defined within an XML Dtd document. So our new XML document, which is to be created based on this XML Dtd, so it must surely satisfy the condition given in this particular Dtd. Otherwise the XML document cannot be called as a valid XML document. If the newly created XML document follows this XML Dtd, we can call that XML document as a valid XML document. Okay, so otherwise if it is following all the syntax properly, it can be only called as a well-formed XML document, but it can be called as valid XML document only when it is following the conditions given in a given XML Dtd. So now Dtd is given. Now if you are creating an XML document and if it is following all of these conditions, then we can call that XML document as a valid XML document. So once again, it is starting with doc type, projects, that is the name of root element, square bracket. Then we have to specify each of the elements, element projects, within the bracket specify the property. The property is project plus we are having a symbol. Then element project, then project specification, name, number, location, department number, worker, department number is having a question mark. Then again description of these data, element name PC data, number PC data, location PC data, department number PC data. So PC data are string. Then workers, again worker star we are having a symbol. Then worker again SSN, last name, first name, hours. Then last name and first name is having a symbol question mark. Then SSN string, last name string, first name string. Then finally hours is also represented as a string data type. So I hope this is clear how it is being represented. So how a Dtd can be represented in or how the different syntax is being followed in an XML Dtd. I hope it is clear. Now we will see some more description on the different elements present in this XML Dtd. Now the different notations used in XML Dtd. We have seen some symbols like star, plus and question mark. They are having some meanings. Now for example, where I have given star, so first description is for star. So where I have given a star here, we can see here workers. Now the property of this workers is worker star. So worker star. So workers with worker star. So what is the meaning of this star? A star following the element name means that, so worker star, element name, worker is the element name, a star following the worker means that the element can be repeated 0 or more times in the document. So while writing an XML document, so our XML document must follow this XML Dtd. And if we are providing worker star means the document, so we are going to follow this Dtd in our XML document, and that XML document must consist of 0 or more number of workers. We can either avoid worker, we don't need to write a worker tag there, then also it is correct, or we can have more number of workers in that particular XML document. So that is the meaning of star. I hope it is clear. So in the previous example, we can have either 0 number of workers, worker tags, or we can have more number of worker tags, 0 or multiple. Now the next one is a plus. We will see a plus here. Projects, project plus. What is the meaning of this plus? A plus following the element name means that the element can be repeated 1 or more times. So this project can be repeated either 1 time or more time. So we should have at least one or more. Previous case star means we can avoid, we can have a 0 also. But if we are having the element name followed by plus, the element can be repeated 1 or more times in the document. So the condition is very strict. Okay, so that is the meaning of plus. So all these elements are called as optimal multivalued repeating element. So star is also a multivalued repeating element, plus is also a multivalued repeating element. Now the third symbol that we have seen in the previous example is plus, like department number plus, last name plus, first name plus, etc. So what is the meaning of this? A question mark following the element name means that the element can be repeated 0 or 1 times. So we can have, like for example, department number, we can have 0 department number or only 1 department number. That means a project will be working only under no department number or a maximum 1 department number. So this is also a single valued non-repeating element. So this is an example for a single valued non-repeating element. So 0 or more is optional multi-valued repeating element. So look at here, I forgot to say this, an optional multi-valued element, that is star. That means we can have 0 also, but plus means a required, it is a required, we should have at least 1 or more. Okay, so a star means optional multi-valued repeating element, plus means required multi-valued repeating element. Question mark means 0 or 1, that means a single valued non-repeating element. We cannot have repetition, we can have a single value, but that is optional also. So optional single valued 0 or 1, but non-repeating, we cannot have more than 1. Okay, so this is about writing the number of tags. So worker, how many times I can write, how many workers we can have, how many description of worker we can have, if it is a star, plus or question mark. So these are the symbols. So here we can see project plus. What is the meaning of plus? 1 or more. So we can have either 1 project or more than 1 project. While writing XML document, we can decide. That is the logic. Now similarly, now department number question mark. What is the meaning of question mark? 0 or 1. We can have 0 department or maximum 1 department. Last name, 0 last name or 1 last name. 0 first name or 1 first name. Now similarly here, so that is all. Here one more thing is there, workers, worker star. What is the meaning of star? 0 or more times. We can have 0 number of workers or we will be having multiple number of workers. Depending on the symbol, we can follow that particular creation of XML elements. So here we have seen the Dtd syntax. Look at doc type and element and different element names and its description within brackets, then ended with a right angle bracket, then followed by further elements, sub attributes, then description of all these attributes up to the leaf node. So this Dtd, whichever document is following this Dtd, it must strictly follow this Dtd. Otherwise, if any one of condition is being violated by the XML document that is being created based on this XML Dtd, we cannot call that XML as a valid XML document. Then an element appearing without any of the preceding three symbols. So if we can see all other elements, name we are not having any further symbols, workers, hours, all this area we are not having any further symbol. If no symbol appearing, it must appear exactly once. We should have one element, one XML document for that XML element for that particular attribute. That is the meaning. That means it is called as, it is a required single valued non-repeating element. We should have only one time. We should have one time present of that particular element. So this is very, very important while describing XML Dtd, the usages of XML Dtd, the syntax of XML Dtd, and different notations used with XML Dtd, then the different representation of data type and other attributes of different elements present in XML Dtd. So I think it is an easier topic only. We can easily follow this concept. Then the type of the element is specified via parenthesis. So we have seen the type is represented within the parenthesis as part of parameter following the element. Now if the parenthesis includes names of other elements, these would be the children of the element in the tree structure. We can see projects. It again consists of another project plus, that is the children of the element in the tree structure. And if the parenthesis includes a keyword PC data or one of the other data types available in XML Dtd, then the element is a leaf node. If for example here department number PC data, now department number is a leaf node, but name we are not having any attribute here, I mean property given here, data type given here, so name is further described here where we are providing, here we are providing the type. If the built-in type is being provided, it can be called as a leaf node of XML document. Now what is this PC data? Once again, PC data stands for parsed character data, which is similar to a string data type in other languages. Clear? Then again, parentheses can be nested when specifying elements, so we can have nesting of this parenthesis also. For example, element project name, then again we can have some other set of elements under name. Like that we can have extension of or nesting of parenthesis also possible. Similarly, if you want to represent a concept like either one or another, we can use a bar symbol in between two different elements, E1 or E2, which specifies that either E1 or E2 can appear in the document. So if you are providing like E1 or E2, either E1 or E2 may be present in the XML document. Then if one is missing, then also it can be called as a valid XML document. So we have seen what is Dtd. Dtd is used for creating an XML as a valid XML document. We have seen the syntax of XML Dtd. Then we have seen the different notations like star, plus and question mark of Dtd. Then we have seen the other description of this the contents of Dtd syntax. And finally we will see the different limitations of using this XML Dtd. So Dtd is a very simplest method of providing the simplest way of making an XML document as a valid XML document. but there are some limitations or drawbacks of this XML Dtd. First point is the data types that are used with Dtd, like PC data, they are not a general type. We cannot easily follow all these types. If it was a generalized type, every person can easily follow that Dtd, but it is not a general type. That is the first drawback. Then second one is Dtd has its own special syntax. So as you have seen in the previous example, Dtd is following a separate syntax. As it is having a separate syntax, automatically the browser requires a separate set of processes for the processing of the Dtd document. As Dtd is following a separate syntax, XML is having a syntax, Dtd is having a separate syntax. So in order to process that, we require some separate processes. Now it would be advantageous to specify XML schema documents using the syntax rule of XML itself, so that the same processes, so it is always better. So in order to avoid this issue, for the usage of additional specialized processes, we are using the second valid XML document creation by using XML schema. Now if you are following XML schema, XML is following the same syntax of XML document, so the XML schema can also utilize the processes for the same XML document execution itself. We don't actually require a specialized processor separately. So that was the second limitation of XML Dtd. And the third one is all the Dtd elements always forced to follow specified ordering. So normally we cannot allow unordered elements in the XML document. So if some names, age, etc., all these are given in some order, every XML document follow the same order as in the Dtd representation. So we are actually forced to follow that. We cannot even change some order of elements that is already present in XML document. So three limitations of XML Dtd. First one is data types are not general. Second one is we require specialized processes for the processing of Dtd separately. And finally, we are forced to follow a particular order. We cannot violate the order of elements that are presented in XML document. So that is all about now. So in this session we have seen the XML categories like well-formed XML document and valid XML document, and we have seen what is a well-formed XML document. And second one, a valid XML document can be created by using two mechanisms. One is by using the XML Dtd, and second one by using XML schema. And this session we have seen the creation of XML Dtd, its syntax, the different meanings of different representations present in XML Dtd, and how it is associated with XML document, and what are the benefits and what are the different limitations of using this XML Dtd. So that's it for now. In the upcoming video lecture, we will be discussing about the second way of creating valid XML document, that is called as XML schema. Thank you.